I spent 10 days in Santiago, Chile, and honestly, I don't think I would go back. In this video, I'm going to tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and hopefully give you some information that'll help you if you're planning a trip there yourself. So, to start off the journey, I'll tell you how I got to Santiago, because I was already on a South American adventure at this point in time for a couple of months. I was coming from Mendoza, Argentina. I had spent about a week in Mendoza, and I took a bus from Mendoza all the way to Santiago, and it took maybe 6 or so hours, and the trip started off fantastic for me because the bus ride was amazing. It was super comfy. I had a huge seat that reclined. There was beautiful views along the whole way. I had a window seat, so I was just sitting there looking out the window the whole time, amazed at the beautiful Andes Mountains. And it was really smooth. I mean, the border crossing was a bit challenging. It was at really high elevation. I can't remember exactly how high, but very high elevation. And it was a bit tiring to go from Mendoza, which is not as high of elevation, to the border crossing and carrying your bag and all of that. So the border crossing was the only hard part of that journey, but everything else was amazing. Bus ride was beautiful. I was having really high expectations, really high hopes, because Santiago has this reputation for being a very modern city. It's supposed to be like one of the best capitals in South America. So I had high hopes for it. And the bus ride started off great, so everything was going right. And then I arrived to the bus terminal in Santiago. Now, in retrospect, the bus terminal is not too bad of a situation, but it was a bit of a hectic start for me trying to get my bearings in this new city because they dropped me off in a place that's kind of far from where I wanted to be. And it was in a busy kind of local flea market, street market kind of area. So it wasn't super clear how to even exit the place. I had my bag, my backpack. I had just gotten basically forced to give a tip to everyone who was involved in the whole bus process. They were holding my bag hostage until I gave them a tip, basically. So that was a bit annoying. And then trying to find my way out of the place was a bit annoying. So I had just a bit of confusion there. That could just be me being a rookie traveler in South America. It was definitely a bit more challenging than I expected to figure out how to get out of there, which is something just worth noting if you're also maybe a less experienced traveler like I was. But then I get out of the area and I see taxis and I see a bunch of stuff set up on the street, like people selling with little tents, shoes, knickknacks, souvenirs, shirts, clothes, all kinds of stuff. And I tried to get an Uber and I couldn't get an Uber. I just wanted to get an Uber back to go to my Airbnb, and no Ubers were coming to that area. So I walk with my bag down the street in front of all of these people. I clearly, if I didn't already look like a tourist because I'm white, I clearly look like a tourist now with my white skin, my backpack, looking confused, phone in hand, trying to find an Uber. Like, I was on guard because I didn't want my phone to be in my hand, but also I didn't want to stay in that area any longer. So I'm trying to call an Uber and I'm just like kind of overwhelmed at that point, just ready to go, like ready to get out of that area, get an Uber and try to get to my Airbnb so I could rest, recover a bit, and try to get my bearings in the city first. But the start was a bit overwhelming for me, at least with the amount of travel experience I had at that time. But anyways, I ended up making it to my Airbnb, no problems. It was pretty easy to check in. I was in some sort of residential looking building, so there was a guard at the gate. You just say like, hey, I'm checking into this place. They let you in with a buzzer every time. So at least the apartment I was in felt safe because there was a gate with a guard and a buzzer, and it was a bit controlled. The area around my place, though, was a bit concerning to me as a first impression. And a key thing to mention here is that I arrived on a weekend. It was Saturday when I arrived, which is significant, and I'll tell you why. Because I stayed in the downtown area, like the corporate area, stayed in this area. And I didn't know if it was good or bad, really. It just seemed like a central area, and I had seen a few things about where you could stay, where you wouldn't stay, and this was like a potentially recommended area. And I arrived at, let's say, 6 p.m. I arrived at 6 p.m. It was a ghost town. It looked like a zombie apocalypse had happened there. All of the businesses had their metal shutters down. Every metal shutter was covered in graffiti. There's no one around except for like maybe 1 or 2 people walking their dogs. And it just did not look safe, I'll be honest. Like, it looked sketchy. It looked like a sketchy area, and I was starting to question immediately, like, what have I done? Because there's no signs of life at all. And I'm in a downtown area, so I was very confused. It's like I expected this to be like a hustling, busy city center, especially from what I've heard about the reputation of Santiago being this most modern city in South America. And for me to show up to a zombie wasteland looking place was quite a shocking first day experience. To end this chaotic first day, I went out for a walk to try to go get food near my place, which is what I usually like to do on the first day. I walk as much as I can around my area to get accustomed to it, to figure out what's where and see what I have around me. And this is where I started to realize in Santiago, the food scene there, the restaurant scene is tough. Like it's simply not good. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The food scene there is not good. I walked for a bit. There wasn't really any options that close to me that looked decent. I mean, there's some restaurants, I like to call it, because it's clearly a shop that sells food, but it doesn't look like it was ever designed to sell food. It seems like maybe it was a convenience store that they figured out how to put a small kitchen in there, and now they're selling some kind of random food out of there. There wasn't a lot of restaurants around me that had like a dedicated restaurant space, so it seemed a bit concerning in that sense. And actually what I discovered when I was walking around is I found a lot of Peruvian places. So on the first day, I had Peruvian food instead of Chilean food, and that seemed to be a theme. I found a lot more Peruvian food places there in Santiago than Chilean food places. So the food scene was a bit of a shock as well, especially after coming from Argentina where I had a lot of really good food options. The other thing I quickly noted from this first day experience is that walking around at night is not really what you want to be doing. I mean, obviously I did it first day and I was okay, mainly because the area was completely deserted, but also that's not super great because if you're the only one in a deserted area and someone notices you, then there's no one else around to help you out if you get in trouble. So not recommended to walk at night. And then this was further confirmed as I went through my 10-day stay there. I was talking to some of my drivers and they were like, yeah, they were telling me don't go to certain areas. They were telling me which areas to avoid, and they were like, just don't walk at night. Get an Uber, go to wherever you need to go, point A to point B, and just try to stay safe in that way. And even I found it interesting that when we were in our Ubers in other cities, like in Mendoza and Buenos Aires, it was kind of fine in the Uber. Once you were in the car, it was safe. But even in Santiago, we were in the Uber, and our driver would roll the windows up and be checking his mirrors all the time at any kind of light, because the risk of someone coming up to your car when you're stopped is pretty high there. So I didn't even feel that safe in the Ubers. So the safety there was a bit of a concern for me. And depending on the area you're at, some areas are definitely worse than others, as it is in all cities. But in the downtown area, it was okay. In some of the other neighborhoods nearby, it was very much not okay. Don't go there at night. Don't go there if you look like me, like a gringo clearly standing out. And you have to be a lot more cautious than you would in a city like Bangkok, for example. During the day though, I didn't have many problems with safety. It felt mostly okay. I did go walking almost everywhere, which at least speaks to the safety of traveling on foot. It's not that bad. I could do it. I didn't get into any trouble. I didn't have any strange interactions while I was walking. And I walked almost every day, like at least an hour a day around the areas. So in the day, no real problems. There was a couple of times I felt a little sketchy, but I just kept it moving, going through the area quickly and getting back to somewhere that looked a little bit more safe to be in, and that was fine. One thing you will notice if you walk around though is that the pollution is quite bad. There's all kinds of pollution there, right? So you have the smog, the pollution from all the industry and cars and everything that's emitting stuff into the air. It gets trapped because the Andes Mountains surround the city, and it causes the wind to kind of get stuck in there. So there's not a lot of fresh air circulating the smog out of the city. So there's just a haze cloud that kind of permanently sits over Santiago for large periods of time. And the air pollution there is quite strong. You'll notice if you go up into any of the towers, like any of the viewpoints, it's very smoggy. Or if you're just walking around and you're trying to look at the mountains, a lot of times the mountains are kind of opaque because there's so much smog between you and them. And along with the air pollution, there's also a bunch of litter pollution. Like I did find along some of the rivers and stuff, like piles and piles and piles of garbage, of plastic, of just all kinds of, looks like actually people just dumped their trash cans out onto the side. I don't know exactly how the garbage got there, but there was a lot of garbage. So the pollution there is a bit worse than some of the other cities that I've been to, and it was definitely sad because the area itself is so pretty, so it has so much natural beauty. To see the human waste and all this extra pollution just put into the environment was sad to see. Okay, so far through this video, I probably just sound like a professional hater, but to be honest, not everything was all bad. Most of it was bad, I will say, but not everything was bad. And I'm going to tell you now about the few things that I find redeeming qualities about the city, and if you are interested in these things, maybe it makes the city worth visiting for you. And the first thing is going to be, there was a great neighborhood that I discovered while I was there. It was called Los Condes. Los Condes. And it's more of the wealthier neighborhood, and that becomes apparent once you travel there because you'll see a lot more nice cars, you'll see a lot more nice houses, definitely things look like they've been invested in more, and some of the businesses that are there are international businesses that you'd recognize the brand name of, whereas in the old downtown area where I was staying, it's more local businesses, kind of banks, things that are more either South American centric or specifically Chilean businesses that only do business in Chile. So the international wealthy area was Los Condes, and I found that area to be nice, unsurprisingly, because I'm a tourist from North America who's used to an environment that's a lot more like that area. So for me, it felt a lot nicer to be in. And there was a lot more quality options in terms of cafes, in terms of restaurants. There was a nice couple of parks around there that you could walk around and enjoy. And it was really easy to get to there because of another positive thing about the city. The metro system is actually pretty fantastic. The only downside to the metro is that it gets quite crowded, but I think that just speaks to how good it is that people want to use it and that it's affordable and easy to get on and off. So it's popular, but for good reason. There was a couple of other neighborhoods that I liked as well. There was Barrio Italia, the Italian neighborhood. It's got a strip of restaurants and bars and all kinds of stuff that you can, well, mainly just restaurants and bars actually, not all kinds of stuff. But it's a good place to walk around at night. I think even like comedy shows that go on over there. And the area is just lively and has more energy than the other areas do at night. So I found that place nice to walk through. And of course, there's good food all throughout there. Mostly it's going to be Italian food, but there are a couple of other options. Another highlight for me was the Pueblito Los Dominicos, which is an area a bit to the north. Let's see if I can just show you on the map. It's on this part of the map. And we went there on a Sunday to go to the Sunday market and walk around and just enjoy the day. And it was very lovely. You can talk to all the artisans there working in their shops. We talked to a couple of different people there. Everyone was super nice, super friendly. We had lunch there where we got to try some Chilean food. So we tried this dish, which was called something, I forgot. And we tried this drink, which was called this, I forgot right now while I'm filming this. But yeah, it was really great. Took the metro to get there, walk around, enjoy the day, enjoy the sunshine. There's a nice park there as well, or like some green space where you can walk around. And I think that place was definitely worth visiting. Speaking a bit more about the food scene, there was something interesting I found in Santiago, which I didn't find in any other city so far in my travels, except for in the Pacific Northwest in the United States. So in Santiago, they have something called café con piernas, which is coffee with legs. That's what it translates to in English. And basically, it's the same thing as bikini baristas you'll see in the Pacific Northwest. So you can go get a coffee, but the ladies are dressed, like showing off a bit. I found that super interesting because it made it challenging for me to go get a coffee sometimes, because you'll find on Google Maps, like, oh, cafe something something right here. And it's not clearly labeled as like a café con piernas. It'll be like Cafe Aruba, just some random name of a different city. And you go trying to go get a coffee, and then you see what kind of coffee shop it is, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll just go to a different place. So it's not a big deal, and maybe you're even into that sort of thing, but for me, I didn't want to go into a café con piernas, so I skipped all of those. And I just found it interesting, so I wanted to mention it here that exists there. So things I would do again. I would definitely, if I were to go back, which I don't know if I would, but if I were to go back, I would stay in the Los Condes area, the nicer, more wealthy neighborhood, because that's just where I simply would feel more comfortable. I would also definitely recommend checking out all the parks. I probably wouldn't check them all out again since I've already explored a bunch of them. Depending on where you're staying, there's probably a nice park near you, and I definitely recommend at least checking it out, because having a space where you can enjoy, slow down, and relax, and have a bit of greenery around you is very nice in a city like Santiago. I definitely would stay again near the metro, because the metro is very convenient to get you around to different parts of the city. I would plan my meals a bit more than I did, because some cities you can just walk into any place and it's going to be good. not Santiago. You need to figure out what restaurants are going to be good and go specifically travel to those. Something else I recommend doing that I didn't do on my trip is using Santiago as a hub to travel to other places in Chile. I didn't really get to explore all that Chile has to offer, and it has a lot more to offer than just Santiago. And I think actually you'd get the most from your time there if you use Santiago as like a hub to stay for a few days and then make day trips. I know people go to Valparaiso, which is like a coastal city an hour or so away. People go south to go to the Patagonia region, which I've heard amazing things about. Again, I haven't been there, so I don't know, but I think I would really enjoy doing that. And then you can go north. There's the Atacama Desert area, and there's plenty of stuff for you to do out there as well, I believe. So my final thoughts on Santiago is it's okay. It's not worth the money, in my opinion, because it's more expensive than other South American cities, and you're not getting a ton in return unless you're in a wealthier area, in which case you're spending even more money. So for me, Santiago just wasn't a good fit, at least with how I traveled there and how I experienced it. Maybe if I stayed in a different area, if I had better recommendations or restaurants planned before I went, I would have a better time. But as someone who likes to go winging it without doing 5 days of research beforehand, I just kind of pick a place and go, it didn't turn out super great for me. In my 10 days there, I was ready to call it quits and move on to the next place. 10 days was plenty of time. In fact, I think 7 days was a bit too much time even. Maybe 3 to 4 days would be perfect to explore the area. There's museums there if you're interested in museums, there's parks, there's different neighborhoods you can check out. So 4 days would probably be like the maximum that I would spend in that city if I were to go back. But as a disclaimer, travel is personal, and you'll have your opinions about a place, I'll have mine, and in this case, my opinion is that it's a skip. Santiago for me is a skip. I don't know if I would go back unless I have a compelling reason to, or if I'm going to go somewhere else in Chile and I need to connect to Santiago because that's the easiest place to connect to. So anyways, if you have different Santiago experience, let me know in the comments. What did I do wrong? Do you agree? Because maybe I just traveled really silly and I missed a bunch of things that are important to do in Santiago that would have changed my experience. But that's just how it was for me. That's the honest review. And if you want to see my next honest review, I traveled from Santiago to Cusco in Peru, and I was there in Cusco for 10 days, and that was the start of my almost 1 month trip around all of Peru. So I'll be telling you all about Cusco, and then I'll be telling you about the bus ride I did Peru hop from Cusco to Puno to Arequipa to Huacachina to everywhere around Peru. And I'll be telling you how that went in the upcoming 1 or 2 videos, probably 2 because it'll be a lot to talk about. So if you're interested in that, stick around. And then of course, longer term in the upcoming weeks, I'll be covering my time in Colombia, I'll be covering my time in Texas, I'll be covering my time in Southeast Asia. So lots more videos to come. Stick around for more updates. See ya.